Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 631, and today's date is April 1st, 2015, and the title of this episode is The Economic Collapse is Happening Now. It just wasn't announced yet. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand Greece still working with the ECB, talking to Russia, and it seems like they might be pivoting towards Russia because they made a statement that we want Russia to help us rebuild the Greek economy, both trade agreements as well as through purchase of government bonds in the primary bond market. And again, as we know, Russia is going to do everything they possibly can to help the economy grow. The central banking system, the IMF, will continually put the country into debt. This is the big difference because, as we can see, and from one of the politicians in Ukraine, where they surveyed all the countries that the IMF is involved with, they have seen that every single country has declined with the help from the IMF. The central bankers continually put these countries into debt. They give them more debt, they impose austerity on the people, and the economy of each of these countries does not grow. And of course, Greece now has the choice of saying, you know something, we're going to default. We're going to slide over to Russia, to the BRICS system. And of course, what's going to happen, they'll lift the ban. They'll be able to sell their products to Russia. The gas pipeline is going to be built, and they're going to bail out the banks, and they're going to help the country get back on its feet. And if this occurs, the rest of the countries, Italy, Spain, France, Portugal, they're all going to look at this and say, you know something? Why don't we do the same thing? Look how good Look how good they're doing. And this is what the central bankers are worried about. Now, here in the United States, they're continually trying to convince us that everything is perfectly fine. We're in this incredible recovery, and this is what a recovery looks like. They're trying to convince us that, yes, this is what it looks like. And what we're seeing is that we are totally not in a recovery. We are in a major collapse of the entire system. Just because the stock market is continually propped up, that doesn't show us what the economy is actually doing. When we actually look around and we see stores closing, housing declining, people out of work, this tells us what is really going on in this country. When we see the infrastructure completely falling apart, roads, bridges, aqueducts, everything, you see it, it's falling apart. The system is in a major collapse. Now, of course, everyone's going to wake up when the market comes down, but this collapse has been happening all along. Do you really think back in 1929, when the stock market crashed, the economy just went south in that minute? No, it was happening all along. In 2008, it started to decline way before that. Just that everyone kept it quiet. They told everyone everything was fine. We see ADP, they came out with their numbers today. And after missing expectations in a dismally weak February print, March turned out even worse. March ADP employment change was a mere 189,000 against expectations of about 225,000, dropping to its lowest since January of 2014. Large business hiring, that was the worst. They only added about 19,000 jobs. Jobs growth is strong but slowing. This is what they're telling us. It's strong, but it's slowed up a little bit. But it's really weak and accelerating lower. Manufacturing jobs only added 1,000. And we can see right now This system is completely falling apart. We are a part-time nation. People cannot find the high-paying, full-time jobs. And they're continually looking, and those people who are continually looking, they're not counted. And this is where we're getting these manipulated unemployment numbers. We see that households today are struggling to save money. Half of U.S. households can't even save a few cents. According to the results of a new survey by Bankrate.com, 1 in 5 said they're not even able to save a penny. And I believe this. I think most of the people today are living on credit. If they didn't have their credit cards, I don't think they'd be able to make it today. Even those people who are working, I think they're substituting what they've lost in income and using their credit cards, making their small payments. But eventually what happens, as everyone knows, it cannot be sustained as time goes on. We see manufacturing declining. ISM manufacturing tumbled to 51.5, missing expectations of 52.5. This is the lowest since May 2013. Under the covers, it is even uglier, with the lowest new orders since January 2014, as U.S. manufacturing data has missed 5 of the last 7 months and dropped for 5 months in a row, which hasn't happened since 2008. The system, again, is not working anymore. Yes, they can manipulate the numbers. They can make us look at unemployment, and they can continually massage them, manipulate them. They can massage GDP. They can massage inflation. They can do all of this. They can pump the market up, but reality is reality. And when this continually creeps up and reality sets in, all this manipulation is just going to be that, manipulation. People are going to say, wait a minute, it really doesn't make sense anymore. There are more people on the streets today than ever before. They have no homes. Why is real estate collapsing? Why are more stores closing? I mean, look what's happening in Canada, UK, and the United States. Stores are closing left and right. People are being laid off. Manufacturing is declining. The Baltic Dry Index dropped 6 points to 596. Now, we've seen it improve a little bit. Not much. It only got up to about 602, then it dropped back down. And the only reason right now that I can see that it has gone up is because the higher capsize rates increased, which pushed the Baltic Dry Index up a little bit. It wasn't because of manufacturing. It was because the capsize rates increased. Manufacturing is declining and continually declining. We see U.S. auto sales did not do well whatsoever. U.S. car buyers stepped on the brakes in March. General Motors sales fell 2%, Ford and Nissan 3%, Honda down 5%. And we're wondering, how has GM continually kept their sales up all this time? Well, we know a couple of reasons. We know they were channel stuffing, where basically what they do is they create the cars, they manufacture them, and the dealers take delivery, but there's no people that are actually buying them, and they stuff the lots with many, many cars. We understand that the auto industry has been letting in subprime people, and actually anyone with a heartbeat can get a loan to purchase a car. This is drying up. It's getting harder and harder to sell these cars because those people, it's just drying up. They just don't have the resources to keep this up. And how is GM continually keeping this going? Well, they had help from the government. That's right. Who is buying the cars? The U.S. government. They have purchased about 24% of the automobiles. roughly about 100% higher than GM's headline rate of sales increase. And if we look at this, we can see throughout all this time period, they are continually purchasing the cars, pushing them up. These aren't real sales. These are sales to the government. Subprime sales. Most of these people are delinquent on their loans. The cars are getting repossessed. Again, this is completely fake, phony, and false. We see U.S. construction spending falls for the second month in February. Construction spending fell about 0.1% in February after a revised 1.7% drop in January. Last month, the government said that the pace of housing plummeted 17% in February from January's rate. Home construction slid 56.5% in the Northeast, 37% in the Midwest. Private spending on construction of single-family homes declined by 1.4%, the biggest drop since 2010. It's completely falling apart. The Atlanta Fed GDP, their new model that forecasts the real GDP, well, they revised it again from 2.2% down to 0. Of course, it's the weather. This is why the economy is not doing well. Because the Northeast had snow, but the rest of the country is fine. This is why the economy is not doing well. No, maybe the economy is not doing well is because we don't have manufacturing. People aren't out there working. People, since they're not working, they're not spending their money in the retail shops. Since they're not spending the money in the retail shops, they're closing and they're laying off more people. As the government continually adds more and more debt to the economic system, where they keep us in the dark because they're using manipulated illusionary numbers to pretend that we're in a recovery. Actually, these GDP numbers are much, much lower. You have to remember, they manipulate these numbers. They went all the way back to 1929, added research and development, recalculated all the way up to the present day. The deflation that we're seeing here in the U.S., except for food, of course, adds to the GDP. So what we're seeing right now is that this entire economy is in a collapse right now. They just haven't announced it. When will they announce it? When that stock market comes down, then we're in the real collapse. Basically, what's happening now is the entire country is in a collapse, and the 1%, the banks, are reaping the benefit from the stock market. That's about it. And once that starts to fall apart, because the rest of the people leave the market, and it's just computers and whatnot going on there, we are in a major, major collapse. This is when they'll announce it to let everyone know. But of course, what they're going to do is they're trying to head this off with blaming it on another country or group. And this is what they'll do, so they're not blamed for this major, major collapse coming. Now, there's something strange with the Fed gold holdings. 2 months ago, when looking at the most recent physical gold withdrawal numbers reported by the Fed, something peculiar happened. Between the publicly reported surprise redemption by the Netherlands, which was 122 tons, and the just as surprise redemption of the Bundesbank of 85 tons, at least 207 tons of gold should have vacated the New York Fed gold vault. Instead, the Fed reported that in all of 2014, only 177 tons of gold were shipped out. Somehow, the delta between what we shipped and what was received in the past year was a whopping 30 tons, or about 15% of the total. What happened? Basically, right at this point, we don't know. We don't know what happened to the gold. This means that after 177 tons of gold were withdrawn in 2014, the largest year of gold redemption since 2008, when 230 tons of gold departed the New York Fed vault and another 30 tons of part gold has been recalled to their native lands so far in 2015. This also means that for the first time in the 21st century, the total gold tonnage held at the New York Fed is now under 6,000 tons, at 5,989.5 to be precise. So we can see right now gold is dropping. They're returning the gold to the countries. The economy is falling apart. We see other countries ramping up, getting their gold back. And the United States is pushing war all around the world to keep this system going. That's what they're doing right now. Right now, Russia is out there, and they have passed a law creating special areas with favorable investment climates and conditions in a number of regions in the country's Far East. The Law of Territories of Priority Development, TPD, is intended to help areas of Russian underdevelopment Far East make an economic leap forward. Basically what they're doing is they're giving entrepreneurs tax benefits, simplified administrative procedures, laws that are easy to understand, to bring in more and more investment to help the Russian economy. To better themselves. What is the U.S. doing? Well, they're creating more and more taxes, creating more and more laws. Businesses are moving out. Manufacturing is moving out. They're doing everything the opposite of what these other countries are doing. And we can see this is why we're in this situation. Because they're keeping everything to themselves. They're making themselves richer. And the rest of the country, who cares? It's completely evident. Look at the infrastructure. They don't care. All they care about is themselves. We see more and more countries joining the China-led development bank, the AIIB. 47 countries have joined. I mean, we're looking at Egypt, Finland, Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, Luxembourg, United Kingdom, Germany, France, Switzerland. Israel is going to sign. The U.S. said they were going to sign, that they were going to join up, but we don't have a confirmation of this yet. Actually, what they did was they came out and they complained that China is not using IT technology from other countries, and they're using their own encryption. And they want China to use some of American technology. And then once they do that, they'll join the China-led infrastructure bank. Because since China is using their own encryption, the United States government central bankers, they don't know the method, they don't know the key, and they can't break it. They can't spy or steal the information that's going on inside of this. And this is what they're angry about. And this is why they're bringing this up at this point. Because everything here in the United States has back doors. The NSA can spy on everyone. And you have to remember, the spying is for many different agendas. To spy on the American people, to blackmail government officials, to coerce judges into doing things they normally wouldn't do. And you can see that without this, they're not doing anything. They need to have the spying information to continually manipulate the situation. We see the U.S. Senate right now basically blocked the implementation for the Nations Armed Trade Treaty. This is the ATT from the UN. And we talked about this before. And John Kerry already signed it, and it has to be ratified. Right now, the current U.S. Congress does not allow the State Department to spend money on the ATT implementation. And the White House will be sending the ATT to the Senate for ratification soon, and it expects a huge amount of opposition, which I hope it will. Because you have to remember, the founding fathers of the United States said that the rights of the people shall not be infringed. They said it for a reason, because they didn't want laws written against the rights of the people. And this is what our government does on a daily basis. And this UN Arms Trade Treaty pretty much tries to take the weapons away from the people. Article 2 of the treaty defines the scope of the treaty prohibitions: the right to own, buy, sell, trade, or transfer all means of armed resistance, including handguns, is denied to civilians by this section of the Arms Trade Treaty. Article 3 places the munitions fired, launched, or delivered by the conventional arms covered under Article 2 within the scopes of the treaty's prohibitions as well. Article 4 places all parts and components of weapons within the scheme. If you notice, it seems like the President already created the executive orders to go along with the UN Arms Trade Treaty. Very interesting, isn't it? How they're already prepared for this. And they've been trying to pass laws that mimic the UN Arms Trade Treaty. Article 5. Under the title of the General Implementation, Article 5 mandates that all countries participating in the treaty shall establish and maintain a national control system, including a national control list. This list should apply the provisions of this treaty to the broadest range of conventional arms. Article 12 adds to the record-keeping requirement, mandating that the list include the quantity, value, model, authorized international transfers of conventional arms, as well as the identity of the end user of these items. And it seems like this is what they've been trying to do all along, because they want this ratified. And they want it done so they can start taking the weapons away from the people. This is what they're going to use as the excuse why all weapons need to be taken away from the people. And we have to remember, a population with no weapons is a controlled population. A population with weapons, they are in control. And this is why the Founding Fathers gave us the Second Amendment. Look around, look at history. It is a fact. Now, Obama took out his pen, his paper, and he decided to create another executive order. Obama created the first ever sanctions program to penalize overseas hackers who engage in cyber spying and companies that knowingly benefit the fruits of that espionage, potentially including, of course, countries like Russia, China, North Korea, Syria. And he did this because it's easy to do. You don't have to prove anything. All you have to say is that, yes, we know it's China who cyber attacked this company, this website, and we're going to place sanctions on China. And it makes it easier for them to place sanctions on any country with absolutely no proof whatsoever. Obama said cyber threats pose one of the most serious economic and national security challenges to the United States. And his new executive order will give the U.S. the authority to sanction individuals and companies, but he hasn't really mentioned what the specific penalties are. The executive order gives the administration the same sanction tools it now deploys to address other threats, including crisis in the Middle East and Russia's aggression in Ukraine, and makes them available for less visible cyber threats. So the question is, with this new executive order, can they go after companies like WikiLeaks or Edward Snowden, who, get information about, like, say, the TPP, and they publicize what they receive, because that is a cyber threat or some type of cyber espionage. And right now, yes, this falls under this. So if you have your hands around any type of information that is private and now it's out there and leaked, this could allow the government to come after those people. And basically what they're saying, the President order includes deliberate activities accomplished through unauthorized access to a computer system, including by remote access, circumventing one or more protection measures, including by bypassing a firewall or compromising the security of hardware or software in the supply chain. And we can see right now, Edward Snowden, The Guardian, WikiLeaks, all of this because they were involved in getting information and putting it out there, they would have a problem at this point. Now, we understand the United States government central bankers have been trying to collect all of our information. They wanted all the states to come in line with their new Real ID system, and a lot of the states are pushing back because what they wanted to do is hand out, and many of the states have already done this, hand out the new driver's license, which has an RFID chip, a barcode. Eventually you'll have your DNA, an iris scan, and all the information about you all sent up to a federal database. And they wanted this all to be linked up, and that information will be supplied to Canada, it will be supplied to Mexico, and other nations as you travel. They'll also be able to track you, but a lot of states are pushing back. So they're trying one other thing. If this Real ID doesn't go to every single state, they're trying the Legal Workforce Act, which is HR 1147. And basically this, they're trying to convince us, is basically aimed at preventing illegal immigrants from obtaining jobs in the United States. But the most troubling elements highlighted by this new bill is that that's not what it's really about. Basically what it would do, it would mandate a national ID card for every American as a condition of working. It would also force employers in America to purchase and use the E-Verify technology to check with Washington as to whether potential employees have government permission to work. So basically, if you want a job, you will need to get one of these cards. And it will check to see if maybe, I don't know what requirements they're going to use, but, oh, look, his credit's not that great. Maybe we shouldn't give him the job because he might steal or something like that. I mean, look at the automobile industry right now. They check your credit to get auto insurance. It makes no sense. If you pay in full, they still check your credit, and your rate is adjusted on your credit score. And we can see right now they're going to use this to track and to keep an eye, and you actually have to get permission from the government, because every time they do this, the government says, yes, you're clear, you can work. Oh no, you can't work. And this is going to contain a lot of information. Ron Paul is out there, and he's warning that the national database required for the ID could easily expand it to include information on gun ownership, medical records, political affiliation, virtually anything else that the president wants. All he has to do is use his pen and paper. And does this sound like a free country? No, it seems like it's a controlled country, and the government is giving you permission to do things. It's just a way around everything. Now, we understand that the NSA is spying on every American here in the country. They have backdoors into iPhones, Android phones, computers, iPads. They collect your email. They track your phone calls. Well, just the metadata, of course. Right? And we understand that this is in a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And the Pentagon, who doesn't want to be spied on, by the way, decided that they're going to roll out their super secret smartphones where the NSA cannot hear what they're saying. These phones are made by Silent Circle, founded by a former Navy SEAL and the inventor of a privacy-minded PGP encryption, and is known for creating these phones, and it's called the Black Phone, and it is spy-resistant. U.S. military personnel are using the device encrypted with secret code down to its hardware to communicate for both unclassified and classified work. The wild thing about it, that it's a Swiss firm. It's not made here in the United States. So guess what? There's no back doors. They don't know the encryption. So why does the Pentagon want to keep everything they're doing a secret? Shouldn't it just be the same as every other person out there? Because it's for business and private use. because it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment, and there are certain things that are private to you. When you meet a friend, do you just go up to them and say, hey, my bank account number is blah, blah, blah. Guess what? I've been sleeping with this other person. Oh, guess what? This is how much money I have in my account. Oh, guess what? I haven't paid my No, you don't. But this is what the government is doing to us. They're prying into our personal lives without our permission. The difference is, if you decide to tell something personal about you, that is your choice. The government is taking away your choice to do so. Plus, it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. We have the right to privacy. There is absolutely no reason for the government to spy on the American people. And actually, they don't even have the right to do this. Actually, these people, since they're in violation of the Fourth Amendment, there should be a trial, and probably most of them go to jail because they violated the Constitution. Now, the United States government central bankers have been trying to push regime change in a lot of the Latin American countries, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina. And right now, Latin America, they are going to discuss removing all U.S. military bases from their soil. This is coming from a top official of the integration organization UNASUR, UNASUR. The issue may be discussed next month at the upcoming summit of the Americas in Panama. And this is going to be held on April 10th and the 11th, and it's going to be attended by 31 nations who have already confirmed their attendance. And it looks like, from everything that's been happening, they're saying, you know something? Maybe the U.S. shouldn't be in this area. And this tells us that these other nations are starting to catch on. They're starting to realize that the United States government central bankers, they're the ones who are trying to change things in their countries. We see it all throughout the Middle East, Ukraine, and Latin America. This has been going on for a very long time. And these countries are done with it. I mean, in Afghanistan, regime change. We just recently had one. John Kerry went up there, fixed the elections to get the person he wanted in office. Well, not him. The U.S. government central bankers wanted in office. Why? To sign the bilateral security agreement. And what we've seen is that opium production has been on the rise in Afghanistan ever since the U.S. went into Afghanistan. So the mercenary firm Blackwater, or Academy, has pretty much taken about $569 million from the Pentagon to try to stop the poppy opium production. And it hasn't worked. Actually, it's expanded. So basically, what we're seeing here is, since the U.S. toppled the Taliban in 2002, opium production in the country has tripled. What do you think they're doing there? They're the Blackwater team, where the U.S. government is helping them out, controlling them. They are protecting these fields. They're growing the poppies. They're creating opium, selling it over to other countries to pay for their secretive operations. That's why it has tripled. If you look at this and then you look at Syria, where they're bombing the Islamic State in Syria, isn't it strange how their territory has tripled? So every place the United States government central bankers go into and they say, oh, we're going to reel this in, we're going to control this, we're going to get everything seems to go the opposite way. And I've always said this, every time the government tells us something, it is always the opposite. Now, Obama is out there and he has congratulated the new Nigerian president, Buhari. And basically we know that the U.S. government central bankers, they have troops in Ghana, in Chad, and I wouldn't be surprised if they make some type of deal where the troops now go into Nigeria. This is what they've been trying to do for a long time. Merkel is out there and she is saying that the heavy arms pullout in East Ukraine lacks transparency. Really? But again, they're not going to blame anything on Kiev. She's saying that the Minsk agreement, it is not fully implemented. It is not working. That is because Ukraine has violated the Minsk agreement many, many, many times. And there is no punishment, no penalty. So how could this be even right now? Now, if the southeastern people did something, there'd be sanctions, there'd be penalties on Russia. But if Kiev violates it, there's nothing. There's nothing to control them. Why? Because they don't want this Minsk agreement to be enforced. They want to go to war. And we know they started the draft system to bring in 20,000 plus men and women into the armed forces for this spring because they're going to push a major offensive. And what's happening is a lot of these Ukrainians, they don't want to go into the armed forces. Only a quarter of Ukrainians of a call-up age are ready to do military service, as many of them fear to be sent to the zone of the military operation in Donbass. About 25% of recruits come by themselves. The rest, they're not. And they've been busting down doors in colleges, in dorm rooms, and saying, you've been called up, you need to leave school, and if they resist, they put them in handcuffs, they take them away. This has happened many, many times. They don't want war. And we can see Ukraine is pushing war right now. Ukraine saying they foiled another terror attack. They found a block of TNT on a railway line, and they found it just in time right before a passenger car was coming. Well, as we know, the CIA, FBI is in Ukraine, so we can see they're using the same tactics. Basically, they're setting it up and letting everyone know, yes, this is what has happened. The self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, they said they have intercepted that there's going to be subversive groups who, under the guise of militiamen, will stage provocations and open fire on Ukrainian positions. They're saying, and they're putting out the word now, this is not us. Do not react. Because their information is showing them that their Ukrainian forces are getting ready for a false flag. They said, our intelligence service has obtained a document confirming these plans. This is an electronic version of the plan of special operations in Sector B obtained by our agent. The document has been signed and is effective now. He cited a few excerpts from the document, which in particular say that the key efforts during the special operation are focused on discrediting the governing bodies of the terrorist organization, the Donetsk People's Republic, convincing the population of Donetsk that separatists are unable to ensure security in the city. And we knew something like this was going to happen. Now, this might not happen completely, but we can see they are building up for a false flag event because they want this war started. If the Ukrainian government, the U.S. government central bankers did not have this war, the entire country would collapse right now. They need this war to prevent a collapse. Think about this. This is what's going to happen here in the United States and throughout Europe. They're going to push war to pretend that another group, country has caused it, and they're going to use war to do whatever they can to create money, to keep the economy propped up, because they don't want to be blamed. The same thing's happening in Ukraine. We see that the nuclear deal with Iran is getting very, very close. And like I said, I do believe that this has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. This has nothing to do with nuclear. Yes, they're making all these different things. I believe the U.S. wants access to their banking system. The U.S. probably, most likely, is making a deal where their oil, if you do this, we'll remove the sanctions as long as you give us access and you sell the oil using the dollar. Because once this deal is made, we can see, we will know what happened, because as soon as Iran starts selling their oil for the US dollar, we will know exactly what happened. And you have to remember, the deal is kept under security. Only certain people are allowed to go in to see it. You're not allowed to bring a phone. You're not allowed to make a photocopy. And it's in a special area, locked up. Now, the Kuwaiti foreign minister, is saying that the decisive storm that they're doing in Yemen right now will bring dialogue. He said that the objective of the Operation Decisive Storm is to return things back to their right order and bring all Yemenis to the dialogue table at an equal distance. Well, basically, the people have spoken. They don't want the puppet government in there. I mean, since this war on terror has started, the U.S. government central bankers, since September 11, 2001, has killed 1.3 million people. Most of them civilians that had nothing to do with terrorism whatsoever. This is a war. People have died. It's a very long war, and it's continuing. Actually, it's hard to find a year that the U.S. was not in a war. Obama, right now, is going to basically give weapons to Egypt. Yesterday, the Egyptian regime announced it was prosecuting witnesses who say they saw a police officer murder an unarmed poet and activist during a demonstration, the latest in a long line of brutal human rights abuses that includes imprisoning journalists, prosecuting LGBT citizens, and mass executions of protesters. Last June, Human Rights Watch said that Egyptian security forces have carried out mass arrests and tortured that harken back to the darkest days of former President Mubarak's rule. Today, the White House announced that during a telephone call with Egyptian al-Sisi, President Obama personally lifted the freeze on transferring weapons to the regime and also affirmed that the $1.3 million in military aid will continue unimpeded. So now they're going to receive the F-16 aircraft, Harpoon missiles, M1A1 tank kits, and they're going to receive aid. Now we see the Yemeni forces have moved into Aden. They're driving tanks. The firing from the Saudi ships from the airstrikes have not stopped them whatsoever. Now Jen Psaki is out there, and she's making a lot of sense. Let me tell you. She said when Yanukovych left Kiev, he lost legitimacy. He's no longer president of that country. When President Haiti left Yemen, he's still president. What? It makes no sense whatsoever. Now think about what's happening here. Haiti left the country. The people said, you know something? We don't want you here. We are taking over this country. So he went out and he hired foreign soldiers, right? U.S. government, Saudi Arabia, and the coalition forces to go into his country and attack the people of Yemen, who said, we don't want you as president. This is what's happening here. Now, as we know, the U.S. government central bankers are continually trying to provoke Russia into war. And we really don't want war with Russia. This is not going to be like Afghanistan. It's not going to be like Lebanon, Iraq, Libya, Yemen. This is a superpower. They have nuclear weapons. And a lot of their weapons are much, much better than the United States. And we really don't want to go down the path to war because it's not going to turn out well. I mean, they have their new intercontinental ballistic missile. This is a super heavy thermonuclear intercontinental ballistic missile, and it's in development and it'll be ready this year, intended to replace the SS-18 Satan and carry extensive counter-missile defense measures. They have the Bori-class nuclear submarine. This submarine has a next-generation nuclear reactor, can dive deeper than 1,200 feet, and carries up to 20 nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles. One of the primary things that the U.S. military planners worried is how quiet these subs are. In fact, these subs are so quiet that they're almost completely silent. Why is this a problem? Well, imagine a scenario where Russian nuclear subs approach our coastline completely undetected and launch missiles toward our cities. We could be wiped out before we even know what hit us. Actually, back in 2012, a Russian nuclear power attack submarine armed with long-range cruise missiles operated undetected in the Gulf of Mexico for several weeks, and its travel in strategic U.S. waters was only confirmed after it left the region. That's how quiet it is. They didn't even know it was there. So we can see right now they have many different missiles. They have the new S-500 missile defense system, which is being developed right now, which will be out very soon. This basically is going to fundamentally change the balance of power between the United States and Russia. Once fully deployed, the S-500 will be able to intercept our intercontinental ballistic missiles. This means that the concept of mutually assured destruction does not necessarily apply any longer. The S-500 is not an upgrade to the S-400, but a new design. It uses a lot of new technology and is superior to the S-400. It was designed to intercept ballistic missiles. It is planned to have a range of about 500 to 600 kilometers and hit a target of altitudes about 40 kilometers. And it also can bring down low orbital satellites. So we can see at this point that we do not want a war with a major power, because it's not going to turn out well for anyone. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared.